did a lot of research with different things. One of the things that I researched was an article in the Bristol Banner, and Mr. Mosier that was for the Bristol Banner was a silver-tongued devil.
He still is.
And that come down several generations. The article says, all was lovely and the goose of prosperity in Bristol was flying high. Now, you couldn't write that today, but that's, that's a tremendous story. Bristol's growing, water's backing up, and all things are good. So I'm going to stop the story right there for just a little bit, and I'm going to tell another story. We'll come back to it. Some of you people will recognize this, this little baby right here. And I'm glad some of us are here tonight so they can verify this story. This is the beautiful stone bridge that used to cross Trout Creek. This picture is actually taken from Cliff Detweiler's property, and it was taken off looking to the northeast. This picture was taken in 1968. And this is how this bridge looked the whole time that I was growing up. It was this way in the 60s, it was in the 50s, and it was probably that way for quite a while. It looked exactly like this, except there were iron railings on each side that went up about here. The purpose of those railings were to keep dumb kids from jumping into the creek. And it did a pretty good job, except for one kid that dove in off of that, and we won't mention any names. But a bunch of kids were playing on there one day, and I'm going to be careful mentioning names and using pronouns here because I don't know how long the statute of limitations is for maliciousness, but these kids were playing on this bridge one day, and the Elkhart County Highway Department drove up. Two guys jumped out with cutting torches, and they cut these iron railings off, and they stacked them right over here. And these kids down there that were fishing, catching snakes and frogs and doing stuff that kids do, run over and ask these guys, "What are you doing?" And these guys with the highway department says, "We're going to take this bridge out, and we have to cut those railings off first. And we will replace this bridge." "How are you going to do that?" the kids asked. "And we're going to dynamite it." And the kids were all excited about that because they'd never seen anything dynamited, Again, I'm not going to mention any names, but I know them kids were excited about that. And so anyway, they cut those railings off and they laid them along the road here, and they said, "Don't mess with them. Somebody will be along, pick them up. We'll dynamite that bridge after you kids go back to school, because we're not going to be doing that, and you guys be hiding in the weeds here and watching dynamite." And eventually that's what they did. So those kids left those railings go until that truck crusted the hill. Yeah. Again, I'm not mentioning any names here, but if you look here, those railings were just long enough right across here that you could span them right across here on the other side, on the upstream side of the Trout Creek. Now, two of the oldest kids in that bunch was on them rails like pretty quick. And they took them to the other side of that bridge, and they put them right along that other side and served as a superstructure for a dam to be built later that afternoon. And all of those chunks of plywood and planks and doors and any boards that could be found in their father's garage and barn were absconded with and come down here and pretty much plugged that hole up and sealed off the whole north side of the Trout Creek Bridge. Now, I don't know how much water goes through that bridge right here before that dam was built, but I know how much went through it after the dam built, and it was this. I was told anyway. And anyway, it wasn't too long before Trout Creek started backing up. Well, Trout Creek drains Long Lake, Baldwin Lake, Coverdale Lake, what we call Swamp Lake, south end, And I think water even flows from Indiana Lake into Baldwin. So it backs up all those lakes. And you plug it up right here, water starts going up. Well, this happened in about July. They weren't going to blow this dam up until after Labor Day when school started, so a lot of water built up in there. And them kids, they'd ride their bikes down here, and before long they were doing cannonballs off the other side of that bridge, jumping into 5 foot of water in a 2 foot creek. And it made for great swimming hole. And so I'm told anyway. And the neat part about that is we pretty much spent our time on that bridge growing up as kids. And the neat thing about it was to sit on that bridge on your bicycle or walk down there or whatever you were doing. And anybody that was driving from the east going this way would look out the window downstream, and we'd talk to them, and they would tell us, man, it's been a dry year. You know, the creek doesn't have much in it. And anybody driving from the west going this way said, man, it was an awful wet spring, creek's real high. You know, and all they had to do was look from the north, and they'd see the water was backed up in the woods and every other place. Downstream, bullfrogs were hopping around in the mud. And it was pretty much seas shut right there. Well, we did this, these kids did this for a period of time, and eventually some people come down from Long Lake. And they got out of their car and they said to these kids that, you know, it's great that you've done this, but you've created some adverse conditions up north. Well, he didn't know what adverse conditions was until they started talking, and when they started talking, we were finding that piers were going underwater and yards were filling up and adverse conditions in Long Lake. So the 2 oldest kids decided that, okay, school's going to start next week, we better fix that adverse conditions thing and tear the dam out. So we had, the superstructure was here with all the doors and boards and plywood holding back probably 4 foot of water, 5 foot of water. Anyway, the oldest kid got on the other side and he started yanking boards and doors off, and the youngest kid, he wasn't too bright. He got underneath the bridge and was working from the inside. Well, the oldest kid, he must have given a yank on the superstructure because it caved in like pickup sticks and down come the dam, and here come 4 foot of water. And the only thing that kept that youngest kid that was underneath the bridge from ending up in the St. Joe River was Cliff Detweiler's barbed wire fence down here. That kid still got the scars of that. But anyway, that's what happened there, and that's what happens with adverse conditions on a dam. But now we can go back to the story.
I thought that was kid, were you, Jack?
I was a young kid underneath the bridge. And the old kid was right over here. So. Anyway.